And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roger, Atlantic.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Payload down to nominal.
Flight downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange!
145! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
The methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You good? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Good evening. You are taking a live look right now at Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, where SpaceX is ready to try once again to launch the Starlink 12-15 mission. And of course, as is always the case, this is not your ordinary Starlink mission. One thing that is ordinary is me. I'm your host. I am Sawyer Rosenstein. I will be guiding you through tonight's countdown and hopefully a liftoff at the end of it. But of course, I am not alone. I am joined by Alex tonight. Alex, how's it going?
Hello, Sawyer. And yeah, it's not your ordinary Starlink. It's not every time that we have an abort, right? At T-minus 2 minutes and 28 seconds. We'll talk about all of that probably from yesterday, of course, not today. We hope that is not the case today, of course. 58 minutes to launch. And hopefully that launch actually goes through this time around. But it is not your ordinary Starlink. That's for sure.
Indeed, and of course we'll get into all the details of that and the events that transpired yesterday, 2.5 minutes before launch. But also commiserate with the people that were out there for it, who are back out again tonight. Max Evans joining us from the field on commentary. Max, how's it going?
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, take two for Starlink 1215 after a rather unusual abort, as we've already said last night. Yeah, we don't see very many often, or too many of those, I should say. So we are eager to talk about it and hopefully get Falcon 9 back off the ground tonight with a brand new booster.
Yes, that is part of why this is not your ordinary Starlink. Yes, we had the attempt last night, but this is also the attempt of a brand new booster, the 1095-1, and we'll get into those details shortly, but I do want to make sure we acknowledge DY is also back out in the field for us again tonight, helping to bring some awesome views and hopefully some cool slow-mo video. And then Carson is the one who is operating tonight's stream, pushing the buttons and pulling the levers. So Carson Phillips, thank you for helping out with that. Now, ding ding, round 2, fight. Alex, what do we got going on here for those who missed last night's attempt? What is launching on the 12-15 mission?
Yeah, round 2 for this Starlink mission, a Group 12 mission, launching a mixed batch of Starlink V2 minis and Starlink direct-to-cell satellites. There's going to be 10 of the Starlink V2 minis and 13 Starlink direct-to-cell satellites for a total of 23 on that fairing on Falcon 9. It's gonna go southeast out of the Cape, so anybody down south, Miami and all that, right? You're gonna be able to see probably this because it's nighttime and it seems like there are clear skies. We'll talk about that later. Other than that, it's your normal Starlink in that sense, in the sense that we're gonna have that booster going downrange and landing on a drone ship. This one is going to be just with the instructions. The second stage will do its 2-burn profile, what is not ordinary, and it's becoming a little more ordinary lately, but less ordinary, I guess, is that it's a new booster, right? It's being usual, though, that the last few boosters seem to have started their lives on Starlink missions. I guess customers are not really wanting to have these super new boosters on their first missions and things like that. I'm joking, but partially not joking. But yeah, it's a new booster. We believe it's serial number 95, right? B1095. This one, unlike some of the other new ones that we've seen recently, we are a lot more certain because we've been able to see that number at McGregor, thanks to our new cameras there. So hopefully, this time around when the booster comes back, we're not going to get any surprises. But that's pretty much what we're going to see today. Hopefully this time around, no aborts. For those maybe wondering what happened yesterday, all that we know is that there was an automatic abort per SpaceX. They did not say what kind of nature that abort was all about, like, it was some temperature sensor or something like that. They did not say any specifics of that kind. And so, we just have that it was an automatic abort, and that's pretty much it.
Sometimes they tell us so much, sometimes they tell us so little. But yeah, in this case, it was an abort called for some reason, but the fact that they are trying again 24 hours later is usually a good sign that it's not some bigger issue that we saw. So yes, that was the official post that you see there on the side of your screen. An auto abort just prior to T-0. Obviously, vehicle and payload in good health because they are resetting for tonight's attempt. Now, the weather last night was near perfect. Max, is it looking the same for tonight?
Admittedly, it doesn't look quite as good, at least with what our Mark 1 eyeballs are telling us right now. There's a bit more clouds above us, which could make for a prettier launch and for additional light scattering, which makes everything a bit brighter, and for maybe a bit more intense sound. But yeah, there's a bit more clouds over us and a bit stronger of a breeze coming out of the south. There's currently a wind advisory in place here for the Kennedy Space Center, but so far nothing that would interfere with Falcon 9's launch conditions tonight. According to the weather forecast released from the 45th Weather Squadron from Patrick Space Force Base, just like last night, there is only a 5% chance of unfavorable weather conditions that would violate tonight's launch window. Basically the same criteria and the same, I guess, low risk in terms of upper level winds, booster recovery weather, and solar activity, as those are all, I guess, on low priority or low risk, low worry. So a bit less pleasing to our Mark 1 eyeballs, but overall, in terms of just sheer launch conditions, nothing that should interfere with Falcon 9 getting off the ground tonight.
And that is most important, is that as long as the systems actually work tonight, the weather seems like it will be on our side. And a reminder, if you have any questions, you can tag us at NASA Spaceflight, and we will do our best to answer as many of them as we can throughout the course of the broadcast, especially over the next 52 minutes and 25 seconds prior to the scheduled liftoff. Let's see. For those wondering downrange, because again, this is a first flight booster, so obviously they're going to want to recatch it and reuse it. What marine assets are out tonight, Alex?
Yeah, so as I was saying before, we've got just read the instructions out there. This is going to be the 121st landing attempt on that drone ship. If you don't count the original just read the instructions, because that was another barge. But I digress. And then we've also got, because the fairing halves are also reusable assets, right? So they have those as well. And they're going to be recovered by the fairing recovery vessel Bob. So that's pretty much what we've got out there. There's also the drone ship tug, which, to be fair, I'm not keeping track of that lately. But other than that, that's pretty much it. The second stage, that's not get reused or anything. So we are just with Bob and just read the instructions.
For shame, how are you not keeping track of every single individual marine asset that exists out in the ocean,
I mean, I do know that lately it's been just, Signet Warhorse, Signet Warhorse the Third or Signet Warhorse the First. It's usually either one of those, or in rare occasions, it's the same fairing recovery vessel, the one that tugs the drone ship out. But other than that, I don't know the specific tug for this one. But anyways.
That's all right. I do want to thank some people here. Before we get to your questions, David, thank you for becoming a Capcom member. Reminder, Capcom and above gets access to the NSF Discord, where you can continue to tell Jack how wrong he is about his bagels, in addition to conversations about all of the major space players and everything going on in spaceflight there. Hemi Charger 06 also joining at that Capcom level, so thank you very much for that support. Marius, thank you for becoming a PadRat member, and Marvin, thank you as well for becoming a PadRat member. We greatly appreciate it. Now, while we're talking about the weather, this is a good question. We don't really talk about it that much, but Max, 98 Central is wondering, does the 45th Weather Squadron deploy weather balloons daily? Are they near the Space Coast? So how exactly does the 45th do their weather forecasting for these?
So it's in essence a combination of weather balloons and also just what they are gathering from various digital forecasts, whether it be models or just your radar. So combination of all three. I don't know, to be honest, exactly how often they launch weather balloons. I know for more high priority launches, they launch them every 30 minutes to an hour, maybe more often. I could be mistaken. But for launches like this, I think with how robust Falcon 9 has proven to be in itself, they tend to go off of data that is more digital in terms of what they are reading in terms of winds, clouds, and also precipitation. It's fairly easy to track and predict sometimes what the weather is doing here on the Space Coast, but in the summertime, the weather is a lot more unstable compared to the spring and winter months, so it can also be as unpredictable as it is predictable. So, but a combination of all three. But however, for these Starlink missions, I don't think. Actually, I'm not sure at all if there are any weather balloons in play, but there are certainly for more high profile missions like Crew or anything for that's a commercial or for the DoD. So,
I'm sure they still deploy the weather balloons, maybe just not as frequently, but I'm sure they continue to because they need to monitor upper level winds, and there is always somebody from the 45th Weather Squadron that is stationed within the launch control center, essentially, that is part of the countdown net, the go no go poll that they do. Here's an interesting one. While we're talking about water, this may not be rain related, but it is related to the rain birds. Is that smooth enough transition? Yeah. Alex, 98 Central again with another good question asking, Slick 40 doesn't have a water tower, so how does the water deluge system work there?
Yeah, that's a great question. Same way that it works for Starship. There's a pressurization system, and there's a bunch of water tanks, and they just push out the water through those pressurization systems. So essentially, just literally brute force the water out into the deluge system. The same way that it works for Starship. You don't see any water tower at Starbase, right? There was at one point many discussions about whether they will have any water towers or anything like that, but they don't. They just pressurize that water system. And that's the same as well at Vandenberg. You don't see any water towers there. And it is also partially used like that at LC-39A. So you see the rainbirds, right? The ones that come out on top of the launch mount structure. In the case of Falcon 9, that's called a reaction fixture. Those at 39A, that is powered by the water on the water tank up there. A little bit to the left, but yeah. But there's other water deluge, which is below near the engines, which is essentially fed by a pressurized water system. And if you look at Google Maps, like that water system is literally next to the fixed service structure there on the left-hand side of the screen. So it's a combination of, the gravity from the water tower plus the pressurized system right next to that. So it's a weird system, but it works, which is the important thing.
I was going to say, that's the only part that matters, is that it works. It's just got to be good enough to not destroy the pad so that they can do rapid turnaround every couple days.
You can kind of see, in fact, you can see there the water tower, right? And then to the left, sort of to the bottom, there's like a vertical tank. I believe that's actually the nitrogen tank that is used to pressurize the water tank.
There you go. The more you know, folks. Let's see here. Again, we've got some really good questions coming in tonight. Dave Summer is wondering, and we kind of talk about it. We show a lot of times in our trajectory map what happens with Stage 2, but how exactly do they deorbit Stage 2, Max?
So essentially, there's enough propellant left on board Falcon 9's upper stage in order to perform a deorbit burn. Normally, what they do is they rotate the stage by about 180 degrees, courtesy of its RCS or its reaction control thrusters, and then do a quick deorbit burn from the MVAC engine. And then what we see on the ground whenever someone spots it is Falcon 9 does what's called a fuel dump. So after that deorbit burn, it basically spins 360 and dumps the whatever LOX in RP1 is left over on board. So that is what we see spiraling on the ground. It looks like a galaxy that's like that would be super far away, but it's actually in low Earth orbit usually. But essentially, it first goes with a deorbit burn followed by a fuel dump.
Yes, people have reported it based off of different trajectories and things, seeing that passivation, the fuel dump that you're talking about there in a cool spiral pattern. Haven't seen it over, areas recently, but when it does come out with some awesome video, it is really cool to see. Here's another one from Owen. While we're talking about, things in the water and downrange, you mentioned that there were 2 different just read the instructions ships. First off, Owen wants to know, how do the drone ship and the booster communicate with each other? And also, what happened to the old, yes, I'm going to say it, the old journey?
Oh, sorry.
I call them Journey and ASOG unironically. You can come at me. I know people are going to. You can at me for it, but I say it unironically.
I'm gonna do the second one first because that's easy. So what happened to the old just read the instructions ship is that they just got rid of it. It was these drone ships are based on different barges, right? So the first drone ship just read the instructions, that was Marmac 300. That was the barge's name. The one that is being used here, if I'm not mistaken, that's Marmac 303. Whereas Chauffeur of Gravitas is Marmac 302, and then of course I Still Love You, I think, is Marmac 304. So what happened is that they had that first barge, the 300, which they called Just Read the Instructions. They used it a couple of times for CRS-5 and CRS-6, but after a while they just got rid of that, and they essentially changed that by, of course, I Still Love You, which they first tried to use on CRS-7, but we all know what happened there. Let's not go into all that. And so they were not able to use it properly until SES-9. It punched a hole on it, and then we had the first landing on a drone ship with CRS-8. I digress with all that. The difference was just, that it was a better build. They tried to move on from that. Just read the instructions. The one that it's going to be used today. It was first debuted all the way back in like January 2016 for Jason 3 for a Vandenberg launch. It was initially stationed there at Vandenberg and was brought here to the East Coast. Other than that, for the drone ship booster communications, we're not fully aware how they do that. I'm mostly sure that the video that we see from the booster is being routed through the drone ship, because it used to cut away back in the day, and that was because it went, like, the booster goes away from land, and so it goes over the horizon from the point of view from the Cape. And so what happens is that the only way to communicate will be to the satellites above or to a drone ship below. And the thing is, the satellites above, as far as we know, it doesn't use Starlink, by the way. So the only way to communicate will be to like a geostationary satellite or something like that, and you need very precise pointing for that. Whereas a drone ship, it's a lot easier if you have a much shorter range communications. And lately, for the last couple of years, it's not being as unstable, that sort of video signal from the booster. So my theory for a long time is that they transmit the video to the drone ship. The drone ship does have the Starlink terminals and everything, so it can get all of that much more stabler video up to Starlink, and then through Starlink they can, stream that to the public. So there you go. Very long answer, but you're asking Alex, like, what do you expect?
You expect the Alex answer. It's great. But yes, and I see that Nightbot was already kicking people who were getting upset at me calling it Journey. Would you rather me also add O'Sisley into the mix? Of course, I Still Love You.
Oh dear.
Exactly. That's what I thought. It could have been worse. Starship 28 is wondering, when will propellant load begin? Max, can you kind of run us through the timeline that we have coming up here?
That's actually a very smooth segue into talking
Thank
about
you.
the timeline, which is coming up in just a couple of minutes. So, the first objective that has to be checked off to get Propelot underway is the SpaceX launch director has to verify that all vehicle and ground systems are go for prop load on both Falcon 9's first and second stages. Assuming he or she polls go at T minus 38, prop load of the vehicle's first stage will begin at T minus 35 minutes with stage 1 locks and RP1 load, as well as stage 2 RP1 load. And that will continue, at least for the first stage, up until the last few minutes of the count. Stage 2 RP1 load will wrap around T minus 21 minutes or so, and then they will begin to thermally condition and chill down the propellant lines in the transporter erector in preparations for stage 2 liquid oxygen loading. And we see that most prevalently with the T minus 20 minute, 20 second big vent. That's where we see a lot of vapor coming out of the TE at that point. And assuming that all goes well and that vent goes away around T minus 16 minutes or so, that is our sign that they have begun stage 2 liquid oxygen loading. All of this will wrap up anywhere from T minus 2 to 3 minutes before launch, and we will hear callouts for stage 1, stage 2, RP1, and locks closeout, and so on and so forth. So last night we didn't get quite to stage 1 locks load complete, and where we heard an abort called would have been right at that point, if I'm not mistaken. So we got very close last night, and still a very unusual abort that we don't get a lot of nowadays, thankfully. And that is why SpaceX is able to keep a cadence so far between 150 and 160 on target for this year. But that is all coming up, and we should be there in about 30 seconds, assuming all is go. So, assuming prop load goes or begins at T minus 35 minutes, we should be seeing frost on the first stage or at around T minus 31 or 32 minutes, depending on the wind and the humidity. It's worth noting that it is a lot more difficult to see frost on a brand new Falcon 9 booster because it's difficult to recall sometimes because they get so dark and sooty that a brand new Falcon 9 booster is bright white, which makes it very difficult to spot any sort of frost or condensation because there isn't much there to contrast against. Really, our biggest sign there will be looking out for any vapor or condensation flowing away from the stage with the wind. So at this point, we should have gotten the go or no go poll, and we should be seeing frost in just a few minutes if all goes well. Worth noting as well that they have no other window to work with tonight. SpaceX only has until 11:23 p.m. according to their website. So also very unusual for a Starlink mission, where normally we are used to these 2 or 3 hour launch windows. Very unusual, but I mean that makes for a very short night for all of us in the field, regardless if it flies or not. So fingers crossed.
Yes, that is one of the benefits of those shorter windows is hopefully it goes when it's supposed to, but if not, there's a lot less risk at that point of it extending too long. Anyone who's been out for a launch that has pushed into the window is well aware, unfortunately, of how exhausting it can be for the wait sometimes. But again, once they begin fueling with Falcon 9, they are essentially committed to that T0. Which, as we saw an example of last night, once they begin fueling, if at any point they do need to stop the countdown, that is the end of the countdown for said attempt. But we will keep an eye out in the next couple of minutes for that frost forming. Also, keep an eye out if your name turned green, because we just had a whole bunch of gifted memberships. Bideford gifting 5 red team memberships, and then Todd Johnson coming in with 20 gifted red team memberships. Goodness gracious, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And again, we're only able to do what we do because of support from people like you. So thank you. Everyone hopefully will get to enjoy some of the members' photos. We usually post a good handful of them on the red team members here on YouTube that you'll get to see everything going on at Starbase, some behind the scenes stuff. It's really awesome. So thank you very much for that. Especially with Starship coming up, that's when you get a lot of the really awesome member perks for that launch. Hopefully sooner than later. Let's get back to your questions now at this point. 9/8. This is the 9/8 Central show, even though it is 10:41 Eastern, 10:43 Eastern, 9:43 Central. They're asking Alex, when the boosters return back to port, are they still pressurized with gaseous propellant to maintain structural integrity?
Well, definitely not at flight pressures, but yes, they usually have a little bit of higher pressure and let's say atmospheric pressure. But that's normal. Like that's also the same when they transport the boosters through the Cape or when they transport them through the U.S. From one coast to the other and things like that. You usually see like a small sort of AC unit, if you will, next to the rocket, either behind or in front. Usually behind, if I'm not mistaken, which normally gives them sort of a nitrogen atmosphere pressure that they can push into the tanks to keep them clean and nice and everything.
Yeah, they need to keep their form a little bit at least, so that would be nice. You don't want them buckling. Let's see. Here's one from Misty. And Max, I'm going to throw this one to you. They're saying, will SpaceX have a separate testing facility for Starships at the Cape, kind of like Massey's at Starbase? What do you think? Do you think we might see either one of the other pads turn into that or Roberts Road become that?
That is a really good question. Thinking about it now, if they were to develop any further testing facilities here at the Cape, they would need more land, and I can't really imagine them doing it anywhere near Hangar X because that's in very close proximity. Or one would imagine that would be relative to where if there's any testing for static fires or just the Raptors by themselves, kind of like McGregor. Probably not there. If there was going to be any testing, it will probably be over at 39A or 37 in the future, or maybe 49 if that ever does actually become a thing, because those pads are far enough away from any other any other facilities that they could either damage or completely take out. Kind of like how Massey's is, and each of these sites, of course, as well, are obviously certified to launch orbital class launch vehicles. So, if there was to be any sort of testing, it's going to be at the pads. So I can't imagine them building anything separate, kind of like they have over at Massey's here.
Yeah, I mean, they've pretty much said that Starbase is going to be their main testing ground for everything. I'm sure we'll see, them making sure that they can fill up all the tanks and everything at the Cape before launch. But in terms of actual Starship development, seems like that is pretty much going to be everything going on at Starbase. And I'm getting word in the back channel from Julia that we have an upcoming article coming soon to NASAspaceflight.com that will go into details of what the 45th Space Wing is saying about launches and testing from the Cape with Starship. So I may be a leaker there, but a little bit of a tease of what's coming up there from Julia. Again, 98 Central is overwhelming the question queue with great questions here as we keep an eye on the rocket for the frost starting to form. Hopefully we'll see that super cool condensation around it, the Falcon 9 Cape, so to speak, in a way. They're wondering, Alex, because we talk about the instant launch window once they do begin said fueling, why doesn't SpaceX just continually top off propellants to forego the instant launch window part?
Well, the main reason is because they warm up, and if they warm up, you just get lower performance. Because it is true that you are topping off with that subcool propellant, but the one that you loaded like 30 minutes beforehand, right? It's already warmed up, and in fact, we can see there already that condensation. So that's a confirmation that propellant load is well underway there on Falcon 9. But that's the main reason. Like once it's already full, if you keep topping off, that is because it's boiling off and everything, and so you've got that liquid oxygen just essentially warming up all the time. And so you've got a lower density material, and therefore you're carrying a lower mass. When you look at the delta V equation, if you have any sort of insight into the equations and everything and the formulas and everything, I'm not gonna get into the mathematics of this, but you don't see volumes, you don't see densities or anything like that. You see mass, right? So you want to have as much mass of the material there, of the propellant, as you can on those tanks. The way to get much more of the mass for the same volume is a higher density. and that you get it with subcooling. If you have that warming up, it'll just lower the density. You'll have less mass of that propellant, and therefore less performance on your rocket. So definitely cannot hold that. Starship can, because it has a lot of propellant. So warming all of that up takes a while.
Yeah. I gotta say, you know, if you want to load up with super dense material, well, no, that's terrible because this is all super light and fun to read. If you want to be super packed with information from NSF, kind of like Falcon 9 is super packed with propellants, make sure you sign up for the newsletter that we have. There we go. That's a better transition. Check out the Rocket Recap. You can sign up for it at nsf.live/newsletter. You get up to date on all the videos that you may have missed. You get updates on when launches are coming up, latest information from the shop, and behind the scenes content as well. So a lot of times, some of our photos that we take in the field, we will write up a little blurb about how we took it, what details went into it, so you can kind of get into the mindset of the photographers at Starbase and the Cape as we go about doing our day-to-day stuff. And you may or may not get some exclusive offers in there as well. So again, that is nsf.live/newsletter. Make sure you are in the loop for the Rocket Recap.
And we also have the socials for a more up-to-date coverage as well, and the channel and everything. But I was going to point out that, you know, you have that newsletter, and then on top of that, you've got the socials. Like, if you're missing on all of these amazing information that, you know, our teams provide, man, like, there's so much out there that we try to get out there. Thanks for that, Carson, for the top right card.
There are the socials, at least for X, Instagram, and Facebook. We are also on Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok. But yeah, I'm sure also the entire socials team is cheering in the back channel as well. Thank you for mentioning them too, Alex. Also cheering for the people that continue to bring in so much support. Mike Phelps, thank you for gifting 10 Red Team memberships. Wonder if there's any relation to the swimmer, although I'm sure you've heard that joke 20,000 times. And Todd Johnson coming back again, gifting 20 more Red Team memberships. Jeez Louise, thank you so much for that. And again, if you did get one of those, please make sure that you thank whoever got that gifted membership there for you too. We really appreciate it. We are now about 27 and a half minutes to go until tonight's T0, which again, at this point, we know we are aiming for 27 minutes and 35 seconds from now. For those kind of just catching up, Ricky Nixon was wondering, did we find out what the problem was last night? We never really got exact details other than there was an issue for the most part, right, Alex?
Yeah, other than that, you know, SpaceX saying that they had an automatic abort, that's all we know. We don't know the nature of the abort. Like, yeah, it's an automatic abort, or what was it? Like, there was some temperature sensor, there was, I don't know, like, whatever that the vehicle might have seen, right? It's weird. You know, one thing that we did point out at the time, though, was that it was quite interesting that it was right after the, you know, what was supposed to be the end of liquid oxygen load on the first stage, right? And we were sort of trying already to blame the booster, right? It's the usual thing. You always blame the new guy when there's something that's going off, I guess. But I mean, it's true. Like, every single time that they have had an issue with Falcon 9, it's always been the new hardware. Because the reused boosters and stuff like that, they already know them. It's already been flown, and so they already know all the little things going on in that hardware, whereas this one is a brand new booster. So it's very easy to just blame the booster, the new guy in town, I guess. But yeah, we don't know any of the details, though. That's the unfortunate thing.
Johnny come lately, the new kid in town. Oh no, wait, I can't actually sing the Eagles or we'll get copyright struck. Anyway, but yeah, we can blame the booster, but we don't actually know if that was the case or not. Or we could just blame Carson. How about that? Carson operating the stream tonight.
He does tend to S-word some of these launches, though. Yeah.
You know, I'm getting screened out of the back channel by Carson.
One day he's gonna jump in just like Kevin.
Continuing on here, though, with some questions. Ben Janitor, I apologize if I mispronounced that, is wondering, Max, what parts of the Falcon 9 are reusable? So, of what's on the screen, what parts are reused and what parts aren't?
So in terms of what is reusable on Falcon 9, it is the entirety of the first stage. So the landing legs, the engines, the heat shield, and the interstage, and its 4 titanium grid fins. So essentially the entirety of a Falcon 9's first stage is, I should say, it is capable of being reused. I know sometimes parts are swapped out if they are either damaged or have too much wear. So they do occasionally swap out parts, but usually SpaceX likes to reuse as much hardware as physically possible to reduce the overall cost of operation. Stage 2 is unfortunately thrown away and deorbited, but the fairings that enclose whatever payload Falcon 9 is carrying they are reused and are recovered further downrange than the first stage booster by about 100 kilometers or so as they re-enter on their own and utilize their RCS thrusters to orient themselves for re-entry, and then they also have parachutes that deploy for a soft and controlled splashdown for recovery by either Bob or Doug. Now, whenever Falcon 9 is carrying Dragon, obviously the pressure module that carries either the cargo or the 4 astronauts or more or less, sometimes hopefully more at some point. The entire pressure module of Dragon is reused, and the trunk is thrown away shortly before atmospheric re-entry. So Falcon 9 is at around, it's probably about 75% reusable right now, and that is one of the goals of Starship is to make the entirety of the vehicle reusable. So around 95% or more reusable. So first stage and fairings TLDR.
There you go. Yeah, there was discussion, for those who remember, of Stage 2 being reusable at some point. There was discussions of a bouncy castle. It was quite an interesting time in reusability there. But instead, they said, you know what, let's just do Starship where everything is entirely reusable. So that will be the next goal for them, is to go for the fully reusable vehicle that is Starship. And J-Dub was wondering then, Alex, what can they do to increase launch cadence for Falcon?
Invoke the weather gods, I guess. Because even though, we had yesterday that abort, it is a rare thing to happen. It's usually more the weather what causes these sort of issues. And you see things like, downrange recovery weather or launch weather and things like that. Thankfully, today, as we were mentioning, is a 90%, 95% favorable probability of favorable weather. So, in that sense, we're not going to have that problem. But in the long run, especially now that we are approaching hurricane season, it may be. So let's, just if you have any weather gods or anything like that, any good luck rituals or anything like that as well, just do that. Because other than that, they have 3 launch pads. They can pretty much launch every 4 days from Sleek 40 and Sleek 4 East at Vandenberg, and then you've got every 6 to 7 days from Launch Complex 39A. So yeah, and the drone ships can handle that turnaround time. Yeah.
What about stubby nozzles? As much as we love discussing the shorter nozzles that are supposed to increase cadence.
Well, it's more about saving money where they can. Where you've got a mission where you have plenty of performance, then you are sort of allowed, I guess, to cut a little bit there, literally, I guess, on the nozzle, and then you can save money and time as well because it doesn't take as much to manufacture that shorter nozzle. And so that leaves room for a few more other long versions of the nozzle extension to be built in that same amount of time or for the same amount of money. So you kind of compensate that. But yeah, today though, it's not going to be a stubby nozzle or anything like that.
No, they need all the force that they can get to get these Starlinks into orbit. Again, normally they've gotten close to 30 of the V2 minis now, but with the direct-to-cell satellites, we're talking a total of 23, a mix of the regular V2 minis and the direct-to-cell. And we will be directly at 20 minutes and 20 seconds to launch. And we will know that that is the case because of that. The best vent that you see right there on your screen, indicating that we are on track so far for tonight's countdown. Max, what is the 20-minute, 20-second vent?
So essentially, this is our sign that SpaceX has wrapped up stage 2 RP1 load, and they are thermally conditioning the propellant lines in the transporter erector in preparation to load liquid oxygen into Falcon 9's second stage. So what they are doing right now is they are flowing just a little bit of LOX into the lines to make sure that they are chilled down and are at or near the very temperatures that LOX is in itself in its fluid state. The last thing you want to do is flow any cryogenic or super cold fluid through any plumbing or material that isn't at or very near its own temperature for at risk of flash gassing from the propellant and worst case scenario cracking or damaging any of your any of your stuff involved, and that also goes for all 9 Merlins on the first stage as well, and also the MVAC on stage 2, as we will hear call-outs for engine chill for both the MVAC and M1D chill down for all 9 in the first stage. So that is what they are doing, and that should wrap up at around 16 minutes or so, and that will be our indicator that they are into stage 2 LOX load.
There we go. So all right now continuing on track, 19 minutes to go until the launch of the Starlink 12-15 mission here from Slick 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. There's a question coming here from Armageddon, great, clever, saying, watching from the UK, so Alex, what is the trajectory of this rocket tonight? So where will this be launching this evening?
This is going to the southeast, a 43-degree inclination orbit. I know there's a lot of people. I want to make a side note here, because they say they are watching from the UK and everything, and they're asking about whether they're going to be able to see it there. It is true that this mission will not be seen from the UK. Unfortunately, it will not overfly any part of Europe at all, because it just goes southeast. It goes sort of South America, South Africa, and everything, Indian Ocean, blah, 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 all of that. And then it deploys the satellites over the Pacific Ocean. It does a deorbit burn, so somewhere around the western United States, and then it sort of deorbits, it re-enters over the Indian Ocean. So it never goes over Europe at all. However, when they do go northeast, so this is southeast, right? When they do go northeast, they do overfly Europe, because it's just like when they launched the ISS, for example. They go out there hugging the east coast of the United States, and it sort of flies off to Ireland, the UK, north of France, and everything. So people out there could see it. Now, this mission will not be that kind of mission, but very soon we have another Starlink mission coming up, Starlink, I believe it's 10-32. That's going to go northeast, because we are approaching the summer and we're back to them doing northeast launches with Starlink missions. So stay tuned for that, because we're going to see if we cover that as well, because it's right after the Starship launch, or at least no earlier than date. But we'll see. It's going to be really interesting to go back again to northeast launches.
Don't worry, you've got Julia and myself that'll be at the Cape during those times. I don't know if we'll have the operators, but we'll have Julia and I at the Cape to be able to help cover all of the launches that happen around the times of Starlink. Oh boy, 16 and a half minutes to go now at this point. But yes, typically the only other northeast launches that we see are ones to the International Space Station, which is usually either a crew or cargo Dragon, which, Alex, I haven't heard about Dragon in a while. Is there maybe one coming back sometime soon?
Yeah, I know that segue. Well, there's actually two Dragon related events soon. There's first a return. We've got the CRS-32 cargo Dragon returning from the ISS on Thursday, and there you can see from the Next Space Flight app where to watch it. That's on the NASA website, of course. You can click watch, and it leads you to this event on the NASA website, and so you'll be able to see that on docking. Fortunately, they don't cover the re-entry and landing, but SpaceX will put that out on social media, probably on X and everything, and so that's going to be a re-entry. But soon there's going to be a Crew Dragon launch. That's going to be with the Axiom 4 crew that you can see there on June 8th. Well, Carson is Central Time, as you can see, but it will be 9:11 a.m. Eastern Time from Launch Complex 39A. But yeah, if you're in Starbase, though, that'll be your time zone.
There you go. Yes, and of course NSF will be covering that. We will make sure that you get all the coverage of all of the Crew launches coming up, including the private Axiom 4 mission to the ISS set to launch from 39A in a couple weeks. So that is very exciting times. Let's see here. We have a message from Ethereal Swordsman with the $10 super chat saying, Falcon's cool, but I'm bored of RP1 and open cycles. When can we have a higher launch cadence on other rockets? I want more unique yeets. Ones that only serve to rain steel on tropical islands don't count. Max, what are we looking at for other launches from the Cape that aren't Falcon related? I think we're still a little ways out from the next one, right?
Yeah, unfortunately. The only rocket that could possibly contend, or at least come close to contending with Falcon 9 at the moment, is ULA with the Atlas V launching the Kuiper satellites for Amazon. They have a lot of launch contracts with them, also with Vulcan as well. But Atlas is up first for those contracts. So Atlas is the only contender, and the next one to fly, I believe ULA recently confirmed that the next flight out of Slick 41 is going to be another Project Kuiper mission, Project Kuiper KA2, coming up soon, hopefully. Then hopefully Vulcan's after that, not too long. We miss Vulcan. Vulcan is a very, very, very pretty rocket to watch fly, even though it almost bit the dust after its last flight in October. But we don't have to talk about that. But Vulcan is, I wish we could see Vulcan fly more. Atlas is beautiful and all. I'm not saying we're getting sick of it, because we certainly aren't. But I just wish we saw more activity out of Slick 41 in general. And obviously with Slick 37 now out of commission, because that used to launch the Delta 4 family of rockets, which are no longer flying. It is up to SpaceX to, I guess, take over operations at that pad and get Starship operations up and running there, hopefully soon, although I don't have my hopes up too high for the next 2 or 3 years. But Atlas and Vulcan are hopefully coming up next.
Yeah, they originally had Vulcan stacked, but then destacked it to make room for Kuiper Flight 1, and then we'll have Kuiper Flight 2, so yeah. There's a lot going on. Hopefully, we'll also soon see the return of New Glenn. There's lots of potential exciting rockets at the Cape. It's just getting the cadence up for them. So, hopefully, sooner than later, we get all the rockets at the Cape, because there are plenty that are still working there. We've got Relativity and Terran R. You've got Viaspace. You've got all these other places that will be taking over LZs 1 and 2. So, lots still to happen there.
And don't forget New Glenn as well with Blue Origin. I think Jeff Bezos has said publicly that ideally they should be able to launch New Glenn around once. I think it was, I don't remember if it was once a month or once every 2 weeks. I think it was once a month. But obviously they need to have New Glenn certified for that type of cadence, and also make sure that LC-36 is certified to handle that type of abuse towards its flame trench and surrounding infrastructure, because a slow-moving rocket with a lot of thrust is not exactly friendly to any sort of ground infrastructure. So New Glenn hopefully coming up soon as well with a once-a-month cadence, hopefully in the next couple of years, depending on how many missions they have contracted. But don't forget about them as well.
Yeah, that will be exciting once they get that cadence up, and we'll have to see what they can do about their extremely low thrust-to-weight ratio off the pad, because it can get very toasty in the flame trench there, and it can get very toasty during the summer, doesn't it? So it would be great if we had some merch that would be perfect for the summertime. Oh, wait! What do you know? We have our new Super Heavy Splashdown Summer Series out, starting, of course, with the really awesome Hawaiian shirts. I just got mine, and as I was saying last night, it is really nice material. It is super soft, and all of it is made in the USA. We are talking the high-quality stuff, not some other shop somewhere. This is made in the USA. You're paying for the quality that you get of the shirt, and having felt it, I can say for certainty, you are absolutely getting quality from it. That's not a merch plug thing that I've written that I have to say. That's just genuinely my opinion on that. We, of course, also have the swim trunks there, which we've seen modeled by Jack. We have new women's items as well, including shorts and pajamas. And all of this has some fun little Easter eggs on it. We've got ones with the drone ship on it. We also have ones with the crew capsule on it. Maybe even some dolphins. If you remember Crew 9 Splashdown, the dolphins that were swimming around may make an appearance on that merch as well. The two designs are really cool. It's kind of fun to see the battle of which design is going to reign supreme. Will it be the drone ship or will it be the dragons? But they come in really cool colors. I absolutely love it. So make sure you check all of that out at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. And then, of course, there's also the swim club there, which Booster 14 will be joining the super heavy swim club, unfortunately, splashing down in the Gulf. But if you're going swimming in the Gulf, make sure you have your NSF merch on too. So there you go. We are now 9.5 minutes until we ignite those 9 Merlin 1D engines at the base of the rocket. And Larley is wondering, Alex, how does that ignition happen? What spark starts the burn? Because we know it's not Billy Joel because he didn't start the fire.
So they have this material called TTEB, triethyl borane. No, hang on. Oh my god.
Triethyl aluminum.
Triethyl aluminum, triethyl boring. Anyways. So it's a pyrophoric material, and what that means is that it burns in contact with oxygen, either from the air or the one that they inject on the engine when it's, that liquid oxygen from the Falcon 9. And so what they do is they inject that TTEB on the gas generator and the main combustion chamber, and that's what makes the whole thing to just, start the fire. Then you put in the RP1, that kerosene fuel, and it all just starts burning. That's for Merlin, of course. Raptor is a whole different thing, but we're not here looking at any Raptors. Other than that, that's pretty much it. The only difference that you will see is that hopefully in about 8 minutes and 15 seconds or so, those 9 Merlin engines on the booster will light up, and the TTEB that they use for that first ignition while it is on the ground, well, it makes sense that it is the ground, the one that supplies the TTEB. So all 9 Merlin engines there get supplied essentially straight from the ground systems, this flush of TTEB as they light up. But for reentry burn and landing, they only have canisters to store TTEB for 3 of the 9 Merlin engines. And of course, the MVAC engine on the second stage also has its own canisters, and it always uses that because it never lights up on the ground. And so that's essentially sort of the difference there between, when it is on the ground, it uses the ground. When it's in flight, it uses in-flight reservoirs and canisters.
There you go. I love how I have chat singing a whole bunch of different songs now. We didn't start the fire. I saw can't start a fire without a spark. This gun's for hire, even if we're just dancing in the dark. Now I've got how can we sleep while the world is turning? How can we sleep while our Merlin's burning? Yeah, my brain acts funny. But we are coming up now on 7 minutes to go until launch. Max, the engines are about to chill down. So why do we chill down those engines before we let you chill on off to get your shots for tonight?
Well, essentially for the same reasons that they chill down the prop lines in the transporter erector for stage 2 LOX load. You want to make sure that the turbopumps and all of the plumbing involved with all 9 Merlin 1Ds and the MVAC eventually are at or very near the temperatures of the fuel and oxidizer flowing through it to reduce the chances of any flash gassing or just unfortunate or improper flow of prop through the engine. So just essentially to make sure that everything on board, every single Merlin engine on Falcon 9 is happy to operate. So everything has to be super cold and at the same temperatures as the prop around it. But I think at the moment now, you're just above 6 minutes until T0, guys. I think it is time for me to go and get cameras ready. Good luck, everybody, and I will see y'all on the other side.
All right. Getting those engines ready, getting those cameras ready. We will talk to you after, Max. So now we are just under 6 minutes to go, as Max pointed out there. Alex, what can we expect still to come next in these last parts of the countdown here?
Yeah, so coming up next should be the Stromback retract. They've just wrapped up RP1 load on the first stage there, so all of the kerosene on Falcon 9 is loaded. But again, we are heading into those final 5 minutes of the count. The Stromback will retract, the cradle arms at the top will open, then it'll retract like 1.8 degrees away from the rocket. And then at the same time, at T-minus 3 minutes and then T-minus 2 minutes, we'll have the wrap-up of liquid oxygen load on the first and second stages, respectively. T-minus 1 minute, we'll have Falcon 9 in startup. That is when the ground computers hand over control of the count to the onboard computers on Falcon 9. And also at around the same time, the start of these automatic final health checks on Falcon 9. And so that's also when all of the pressurization systems and everything on the Falcon 9 tanks start up, and it all pressurizes up for flight, and hopefully at T-minus 45 seconds, we're going to get that go for launch from the launch director.
That is what we are hoping for, and it's a little hard to see, but that Strongback should be retracting just about now, right behind that crew access tower. It's a bit of a shame that they put that up there in our view, but that will lean back 1.8 degrees before throwing all the way back, of course, at T0. You can see the rocket getting super frosty at this point as we continue counting down. We are getting close to the point where we had the clock stop yesterday. That was about 2.5 minutes until launch, so hopefully we will make it past that point for this mission, the Starlink 12-15 mission, where there are 23 satellites on board, a mix of the Starlink V2 minis as well as the direct-to-cell equipped satellites inside those fairings that you see right on your screen, on top of booster 1095 making its first ever flight. So a brand new booster. This will then hopefully deploy those satellites, and the first stage will land back on Just Read the Instructions, located about 600 kilometers-ish downrange. 3.5 minutes to go at this point. Obviously, we're going to be keeping an eye now, Alex, super closely after yesterday's attempt, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep a close eye on the countdown clock. One of the things that threw me off is that I was actually not looking at the clock itself, because that's the first thing that you notice when there's a stop in the clock, right? But I did hear at the time that call out from the nets, and I was like, "Oops." Well, hopefully none of that today, though. Definitely not wanting that to happen again.
Yeah, we definitely don't, but we will keep an eye on that clock. We should also be hearing callouts shortly of them wrapping up fuel on the first and second stages. So we will keep an eye out for that, and an ear out for that as well. And there we go, getting that propellant load wrapped up there. You will also see another vent similar to the T-minus 20-minute, 20-second vent. This is a final purge of all of the lines of any remaining oxygen that they've loaded in there, the liquid oxygen, because LOX, as I'm sure you're aware, with fuel right next to it, can get quite toasty and flamey, and obviously we don't want that next to a fully fueled rocket as it is lifting off, so we should see that venting coming up. And then, of course, Alex, we have Falcon 9 entering startup in just 1 minute. A couple of things happen at that point, right?
Yeah, lots of things in very quick succession. We've got the, as I was saying before, the handover of the control of the countdown from the ground computers to the onboard computers.
Stage 2.
At the same time, we have all of those checkouts, the pressurization system, up to flight pressures and things like that. So yeah.
And so far at this point, we have gotten further than we did during last night's attempt. There is that final purge of the gas closeout lines that we were just talking about there. The SpaceX comms are on a slight delay, so you'll hear them a little bit after we see them from our cameras here. So again, clearing out all of those closeout lines on the ground, getting rid of any excess gas there. So coming up will be Falcon 9 entering startup at T-minus 1 minute, as you pointed out. The onboard computers taking control of the count, the tanks pressurizing to flight levels, and that will be followed, hopefully 15 seconds later, by the go for launch from the launch director. So let's listen in and get that confirmation of Falcon 9 entering startup.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
That's what we want to hear. Again, hopefully the next thing we hear is the LD saying that they are go for launch. We should be getting that in the next few seconds as well.
The launch director is go for launch.
All right, LD is go for launch. That is all we need to hear. 30 seconds to go now. So a reminder, at the base of the rocket, the rainbirds will start up, so you may see some water near the base of the rocket. Then at T-minus 3 seconds, you will see a green flash. That is the T-Tab igniting those 9 Merlin 1D engines, hopefully followed shortly thereafter by liftoff. Just about 10 seconds from now. And of course, once it launches, we will be quiet and let you enjoy the sound of the rocket. It looks like we have ignition and liftoff of Falcon 9 and the Starlink 12-15 mission. Go Starlink V2 Minis, go. The sound absolutely spectacular for tonight's launch. Vehicle now passing through max Q. That is the maximum aerodynamic forces that will be pushing down against Falcon 9 on its way uphill. Quite the crackle there. You can see there as it goes transonic past the speed of sound there with that sort of plume behind it. And of course now the engines, you'll see the plume expand as it gets into the thinner part of the atmosphere. Also, beautiful squeal from the vehicle assembly building tonight. What a VAB sound. So, Alex, we will have a couple of things coming up now in quick succession, about 20 seconds from now. What can we expect?
Yeah, so this first flight for this booster, we're going to have its first MECO, main engine cutoff. All 9 Merlin engines will shut down, and the 2 stages will separate, will essentially fly away. Then we've got the MVAC ignition on the second stage, and hopefully a few seconds later, fairing separation as well. So stay tuned for that. We're very close now to MECO.
Yep, you see that bluish color. That's usually indication right before we have that MECO, main engine cutoff. Then will be the separation of the first and second stages, as you mentioned, followed by that, the ignition of the single Merlin vacuum engine on stage 2, and because our cameras are a little bit ahead of SpaceX, here's a slight replay of it from their cameras.
And there goes the first blast of soot for that interstage.
Yep, again, that booster 1095 on its first ever flight. So 1095 now on its first return to the drone ship. So that will be landing hopefully downrange in just a couple of minutes. On just read the instructions.
I believe
there
you can fairing separation.
You beat me to it. I was just gonna say there you can see that little ripple in there is the fairing halves falling away. Here's the SpaceX view of it.
You can see the difference between the direct to cell and the regular V2 minis.
A little bigger, huh?
Yeah. The direct to cell ones are the ones on top.
Yeah. And a reminder, those fairing halves, by the way, will splash down and be recovered by Bob today. It's a recovery ship, and those will be picked up and flown again. And again, our cameras tonight, amazing job capturing that sort of plume expansion, again, as it gets to that thinner parts of the atmosphere, doing a great job showing that as we continue to check out the stage 2 burn that you see on your screen. This one goes for about 8.5 minutes or so. And then, of course, meanwhile, stage 1 at this point is also continuing its return trajectory. It should be nearing its apogee, the highest point in its trajectory, before it starts making its way down. And then we will have the first entry burn of the brand new booster 1095 coming up in about a minute and a half from now, which is a 1, then 3 engine burn.
Sawyer, I have a question for you.
Uh-oh.
Are you gonna make a pun with this booster being new and the name of the drone ship?
I wasn't planning on it, but now I am.
Because I know you can.
Oh, I absolutely can, yes.
You think it read the instructions, this booster?
There you go, yep. I don't know. We'll find out in about 3 minutes when hopefully it touches down. In the meantime, again, our team out in the field doing an amazing job keeping stage 2 on camera as long as they did there. We've got Max and D out in the field tonight. So amazing work to the team out there. And now 5.5 minutes or so into flight, you can see the first stage based on those numbers in the bottom left. Now below 100 kilometers in altitude on its way back down. And the speed is increasing, but that will decrease momentarily with that 3-engine entry burn. And Alex, Falcon 9's first stage is about to fight fire with fire, right? I got to say it.
Yeah, so we're gonna have first the center engine and then 2 of the outer engines. It's always the same 3 engines. When they relight, as I was saying earlier before liftoff, they always have those T-tip canisters for relight for only 3 of the engines 1, 5, and 9. 9 being the center one. And so, yeah, so we're going to have, hopefully in just a few seconds, that single engine on the center and then 2 outer ones. Firing for about 20, 25 seconds usually is the norm. There we have it. That's the T-tip, and now ignition for entry burn.
1 engine, and then you could tell it goes to 3 once you see it in that sort of line configuration there. It becomes more rectangular and longer. That is meaning that all 3 engines are currently burning, and the first real bits of re-entry soot making their way now onto the new booster. So hopefully now we'll actually be able to see fuel loading better for its next flight.
Yep.
And so far, so good. You'll see the speed starts to pick up a bit, but then now it will rapidly start burning off as it works its way down to the drone ship. Meanwhile, stage 2 on the right side of your screen there, 150 kilometers in altitude, continuing on its trajectory. So far, so good, it looks like, for both stages.
Yeah, and that second stage, don't get too scared or anything because the altitude goes down. That is the way that the second stage does its orbit insertion. Usually it goes down normally to 138. It peaks around 160 kilometers, and then as it sort of goes down, sure, it does go down, but it reaches enough velocity that it eventually reaches orbit. It's a bit more efficient that way to reach orbit than just straight directly. As you can see, they try to get as much payload as they can out of this rocket.
And it's hard to see through the noise, but you can see a little white light there, kind of the middle left of your screen. That looks like the deck of the drone ship. Just read the instructions, which is where hopefully this booster will be landing momentarily as it ignites 1 engine one last time right there for the landing burn. Also see those grid fins, those sort of metallic structures there doing the steering, the thicker parts of the atmosphere.
There's the water deluge.
Yeah, view from the deck. As you hear their landing leg deploy, and touchdown, B1095, not so new as it is now -2. See, I did make the pun you thought I was going to there. Meanwhile,
it read the instructions though.
Yes,
it did the landing.
95 did just read the instructions and landed right on it there. So in just a couple seconds, we should see Seco second engine cutoff 1.
I'm back, shut down.
And there we go. There's the confirmation of that Merlin vacuum engine shutdown. Those numbers look pretty good from what we've seen in the past.
Yep.
And that is what looks like a good launch. A reminder, we say Seco 1 because there is usually a second burn. It does happen, though, about T plus 50 minutes into flight. It is a whopping 2-second long burn, and then they deploy, but SpaceX does not show that. However, we will show you all of our replays from tonight's launch momentarily, so stick with us while we get those replays pulled up. And as we now take a look at DOS's favorite view, an empty launch pad on launch day. Max, do we have you back? We'll see if we get our field team back. Oh, it's still out in the field shooting right now, so we will get back to Max momentarily, but that looked and sounded absolutely beautiful. Again, the VAB squeal tonight was spectacular, which, to those who don't know what we're talking about, you kind of get that sort of warbling sound as the resonant frequency from those Falcon 9 Merlin 1D engines bounce off of the paneling on the side of the vehicle assembly building, and you get what we here at NSF have dubbed the VAB squeal. Such a cool sound. I do want to take a moment here while we get those replays pulled for you to thank some people. Ethereal Swordsman coming in with a $10 super chat saying, I hope the NSSL is right and Nova actually pulls off its credible path to flight within 1 year. Other than that, I love New Glenn's look, and I'm super hyped for the thrust-to-weight ratio on VC6 and Ariane 6-4. So a lot of new rockets coming into the game still, which is always exciting. Even with the old reliable Falcon 9, as we just saw tonight, there's something cool about seeing so many rockets come into play now all around the globe. And Ethereal Swordsman also saying, someone should make literal rock it candy. I want to eat Falcon or New Glen gummies or an Atlas 5 sucker. I mean, the rock candy is a thing, right? So why not just make it rock it candy? Just compress some sugar with some liquid oxygen and RP1. It'll be fine. Daniel is wondering, now with 1095 officially in the fleet here, do we know how many boosters Falcon 9 has as we take a look at some of these replays now?
Wow, yeah, that was a fast replay. We're not even 12 minutes after launch. It's usually anything between 15 and 20 at any point. I really don't have a count of any of this. I do have a list of the active boosters and the ones that are retired or expended or lost and everything, but I don't keep the actual number all the time. I did count it earlier because I saw people talking about it. I think, if I was not wrong, it's either 19 or 20 active boosters right now. So yeah, but that's also because there's like a bunch of new boosters that have come up recently, and I'm sure that's because there's going to be a few older boosters probably expended towards the end of the year. We'll see.
Yep, we had 1094 earlier in May. I believe it was still this month. And then we had 1095 just now. We have 1091, which will be a single stick and a Falcon Heavy center core being tested over at McGregor, which you can watch McGregor live 24/7. So
Yeah, 1090, 1092, 1093 out of Vandenberg, 1094, and as you mentioned, coming up soon, that'll be 91, and this one was 95.
Again, SpaceX doing great with the counting, including the 23rd or 22nd Group 12 flight for mission 12-15.
Yeah, the 22nd.
Yes, and it's not 12-22, it is -15, even though it's the 22nd.
And I see Zach in chat. Yes, I mean, it's just that I don't keep track of like the actual number. It's just that there's so many boosters that it's like there's no portion of my spreadsheet that says these are how many boosters are active. I just have like a color sheet, green. I color green all of the active boosters, but that's it.
Well, I mean, green is. Please tell me it's T-Teb green that you use.
It's a very bright green, but I don't think it's T-Teb green.
We need to find a. We need to do a color scan on a launch for the T-Teb and see what the exact green is and change the color in your spreadsheet. And Zach also saying, I thought you had them all tattooed.
This one has audio, right? Because I just heard a mosquito.
Yeah, In case you're wondering, yes, the it is Florida. It is getting closer to summertime. It is hot and humid out, so
There
it
it
is
is.
mosquito season. But it's also time to listen to the launch audio again. There's the squeal. So yeah, if you're wondering what we meant about the VAB squeal noise, that is that screeching, squealing sound that you hear from the panels vibrating on the side of the vehicle assembly building, the VAB there. Max, I believe we have you back now. That sounded pretty punchy tonight. How was it from the field?
It was punchy from the field as well. We are entering, as you said, Sawyer, we are entering the summer months and the summer weather patterns, and that with it brings some very thick and humid air, daytime and nighttime, which, while feeling rather uncomfortable to all of us on the ground, it carries the acoustic energy of rockets very, very well. So it sounded very punchy tonight. I would say a little bit more so than we normally hear from Slick 40 from this perspective, but you guys obviously heard the VAB squeal going on behind us, so obviously it was indeed very, 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 very punchy tonight.
Oh yeah, and also speaking of punchy, a great shot of Falcon 9 punching off the pad there. Max, this I believe is your shot tonight.
It is my photo, but golly, the compression on this is gnarly. Like you see all this banding around in the sky, where it looks almost pixelated. That's just due to compression. It looks nothing like that post edit. Trust me. But yeah, it was rather gorgeous tonight, though. It has to be said.
I'll be honest, I didn't even notice that until you said something. But yeah, no, Discord is not the kindest with photography there, but still really well done. And a beautiful launch tonight. Great photography there. Great video from our team out in the field. And of course, we have the slow motion from D Wise that will play us out. D Wise was out in the field tonight providing video and tracking. So thank you, D. Thank you to Carson, who was the producer tonight, pushing the buttons and pulling the levers and bringing the views to you. Also bringing the views and the field commentary tonight is Max Evans. Max, thank you for joining.
Pleasure as always, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to hang out with us, and we will hopefully see you again rather soon. If not here on the Space Coast, maybe perhaps on the Star Coast in Starbase, Texas.
Ooh, I like that, the Star Coast. Thank you, Alex, for joining for studio commentary here as well.
It's my pleasure, and thank you for hosting, by the way.
Oh, that's my pleasure. As the Strongback works its way back up there at Pad 40, we are going to work our way out. I am Sawyer Rosenstein. I have been your host for the broadcast this evening. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, you can always keep up to date with everything going on at the Space Coast with our Space Coast Live 24/7 cameras. Hopefully you will check those out at some point. If nothing else, let's check out the amazing slow motion from D-Wise to play us out. Have a great night, everybody.
And here we go.
We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roger, planet.
Water towers fly! Yes! Payload down to nominal.
Fighting downside SPD off. Say again, SPD off. Off. It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Décollage.
Put that in the big bag, you know.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?